to another Coach Dave Academy lap guide from myself, Kieran Harrison. This is week 3 of season 4, 2023. And for this week, we're at Spa, and once again in the BMW M4 GT3. Without further ado, let's just get straight into it. So there we are. That was the full speed onboard lap around Spa in the M4 GT3. I'm now on the replay, just at the start finish straight, just about to start the lap. So I can run you through the lap and everything you need to know. So here we go. Already looking at turn 1. I'm looking at the 100-meter board on the left, and braking maybe car length or 2 before it. Just there. I'm starting to brake. So you can see it's just before the board. From in the car, it feels it's just momentarily after it goes out of your line of sight. That's now in my side screen that you can't see, but just after it goes behind this pillar, you're getting on the brakes, and you want to go straight down to first from fourth. And I think, unlike in most cars, in a lot of cars, it's faster to cut all of this curb. In this car, I was finding that the car was bottoming out a little bit, and that was hurting my exit if I got all the curb. But maybe you could get maybe a little bit more of it than this, but you don't want to get the whole car over the curb. And you're really focusing on the exit, so you're trying to get the car slowed down in a straight line and then turn in and take a late apex, so you can get hard on the power. As you can see, I get really quite aggressively on the power, but it's on the limit. The key is to not break traction, or not break into the traction control, really. So you do have to get on the power hard to actually accelerate up the corner, but you've got to feather it just a bit. Yeah, there you go. See, it doesn't take much, but if you go into the traction control, you lose a lot of time. So just a little bit, maybe 85% throttle is what I was going to there, until the car stabilizes and you're going straight, and then you can fire down here into Eau Rouge, Radeon, whatever. It's easy flat in this car. I'm just making sure I get far across to the left, so then it's less steering angle through the right-hander, and then cutting the last part. As long as you keep 2 wheels on this red and white curb, it's legal track limits wise. So I'm just trimming the track down as best I can, save, I don't know, 100th, 1000th. Very little helps. And coming down this straight, interestingly in this car, you never reach, I never reached 6th gear, maybe if you would have in the draft. But even on quali fuel, I wasn't feeling the need to use 6th gear here, so just stay in 5th. It's not worth it by the end of the straight to have to do the extra gear change. And then we're looking for the 100 board again, or this curb. I think they're basically in line. And I'm braking a car length before the curb, whilst pointing the car at the curb so that I can widen the corner. You can see I take some of the curb here just to open up the entry a little bit more. Then turning in reasonably early, and we're trying to get this sort of geo-blocky stuff behind the main red and white curb. You just want to get two wheels on it. If you go touch the grass at all, I think that's when you get the off track. So just a little bit up on there. And then just a dab of brakes, mostly to stabilize the car, but also to help it get back to the left to open up the following right after this one. Again, using the same amount of curb on this side. Just clipping the grass a tiny bit there, but that's all legal. And then this is where you get differing lines. A lot of drivers like to get two wheels on this red and white curb and really open this right-hander, but I've found in the past that if you do that and get it slightly wrong, you kind of get caught on the curb and it can spin the car. So I actually just prefer to not go over it. It just makes it more consistent for me. But then we're turning back into the right, and again using a lot of this curb. In this car, you can get away with not, because obviously it's a GT car, so it's not designed to chunk the curbs. So you obviously get better. The car stays more stable if you avoid the curb. But for the sake of narrowing down or widening the corner by utilizing the maximum width, I like to take the curb. And same on the exit here. As long as you get back off this curb before the gravel starts, it's all fine track limits wise, so you might as well use it just to carry that bit extra speed. And here we're looking for the curb, which is just after the 100-meter board. I'm braking once I'm just about in line with the curb. You can see here I've started to brake, but I'm not fully off the throttle yet. But that's about the braking point. Braking quite hard, but you've got to be careful here because you're going downhill and turning, so it's quite easy to hit the ABS on the front wheels and understeer wide. So you can see I'm not using all of the maximum brake pressure, just maybe 65%. And then trail braking it in down to second gear. Be careful with this curb. You can use it because you can kind of catch the car on the, like hook the car over the inside and then it pulls it round. But you can sometimes, if you get the front wheel and not the back wheel, it can cause you to lose the rear. So just be careful of that. I prefer to avoid it for consistency. As you can see, we kind of take two apexes. We take one at the entry, then we wash out a little bit, and then we're coming back again on the exit and just feeding on the throttle gradually, and then like increasing the throttle percentage as we get straighter and closer to the exit. And then quickly back across to the right. I don't use all of this curve because you need to be back across the right so soon that you can't really do it if you go all the way wide here. Using this curve again, don't go over onto the green. You would be allowed to track limits wise, but it can do weird things with causing the car to spin when it gets caught on the curb. So I'd like to use all the red and white, but not any further. And then this left, you can use this as you can on most of the corners. You don't have to. I was right on the limit here. Any more than this, and that would be an off track. So just be careful of that, but you can use all of this if you need to. And then same on the exit. I was again right on the limit. I think if you stay your left two wheels on this drain, it's within the limits. And this is one of those corners where it's easy to get the traction, so you just kind of maximize the width of the track to carry as much speed as possible. If you have off tracks to spare in a race, you can even use the runoff as well. And then heading down here, this is one of the more difficult corners because we're running lower wing on this setup than normal, and it's really high speed. But I like to get on this red and white curb just again, as I said in some of the other corners, to widen the entry, just to carry a bit more speed. Don't really have a braking reference personally. I'm just looking at the apex, but it's kind of a few car lengths before this hut or the traffic light on the right hand side. If you like a visual reference, just braking a little bit down to fourth. Again, this is a two apex corner. You want to get the first apex, then wash out wide, but you've got to be slightly delaying on the throttle to make sure that you can come back for the second apex. You don't need to get all the way to this curb, but as long as you're within maybe a car's width of it, you can easily carry the speed through the corner. If you get wider than this, I feel like the track's less grippy, and then you have to add in more steering lock, and then you're just scrubbing speed all the way. And if you get too far onto this curve, it actually is quite violent. You can end up bouncing really wide, getting the off track. So I prefer to try and get reasonably close to the inside on the second part. And then heading across to the left hand side here, I'm basically braking just underneath this banner, and just before the curb starts. You can see here, you can see by the angle of the car, I'm pointing directly at that curb, and I want to brake it's maybe two car lengths before this curb. I'm braking, but I'm still pointing at it. And the idea is, as I talked about, just to widen the corner a little bit. Make sure you don't go too early, because then you'll end up dropping wheels in the dirt and there's a bit of a bump up to the curb. But if you go about where I do here, usually fine. In this corner, you can see here I have a bit of a slide. That's just come from, you can see I released the brake quite abruptly, a little bit too quick. That just destabilized the car. I got away with it without much correction. That didn't really hurt my lap. But obviously you'd want to avoid that on a long run because you're overheating the tyres. But what I was going to say about this is you want to just touch the bottom parts of this curb. You can get up on it, but because the car isn't really designed to chunk over the curbs, I find that pushes the car wide more than it actually helps you by reducing the radius of the corner. So I prefer just to nibble at the edge of the curb rather than take a lot of it. Second part, you can take a bit more. Although I find with this one, it's better to either, again, like nibble the edge of it or really take it. If you're kind of in between, like a reasonable amount, it bounces the car out wide again. So here I get quite a lot of it, and that's okay. Just trying to get on the power nice and early. And again, this is another one of those where you can run out all the way out to this drain. So please do maximize the width of the track. It makes it easier to carry a lot more speed. But then you've got to quickly get back across to the left-hand side again. And this one I'm braking quite early, just 1, 2 or 3 car lengths before that curb. Again, we're pointing directly at that curb. And the aim is to use all of it just to, again, widen the corner. You've got to be really careful on the brakes here because the car wants to step out. So just be nice and smooth as you're releasing the brakes with the trail braking. Try not to take too much of this curb because it's, again, quite steep, so it bounces the car wide. I just like to get... Usually I would take maybe slightly less than this, but as long as you don't go up onto the extra bit behind the red and white, it's fine. Then you can get on the power quite hard, and again, utilize the full width of the track, which is up to this drain. I mean, you're also limited here by the gravel on the left-hand side. But then just stay there and turn in late to this one, and you've got to try and nail the turn-in point so that you can just commit and stay turned in. Because otherwise, if you have to do any corrections, you might end up washing out on the exit and getting the off track. But as it is, if you get the entry point right and take just a little bit of curb here again, you can hold it quite easily flat. Track limit again is the same as always, just end of the red and white curb or the drain. So well within the limits there. And then this one we're just trimming the track down. It's not fully straight, but it's obviously easily flat. Coming to Blanchimont, this is also easily flat in this car, at least on the wing angle we're using. So just make sure you're committed when you turn in. I was a little bit undecided here. I had a little tiny wobble, but it's fine usually. And then for the bus stop, I'm looking for this white line, and I basically brake when I feel like I've gone a couple of car lengths past it. So you can see there, like in reality I'm braking maybe 1 car length after it, but from the driver's seat it feels like you've gone 2 car lengths past it. I'll show you what I mean. Braking now, so yeah, it's a decent chunk after it from the driver's seat, but just make sure you don't brake too late. It's better here to brake too early than too late. You go too late, you just end up really understeer, and it ruins the whole chicane. Again, I'm using some of this curb to widen the corner. I like to basically point the car at it, braking in a straight line, and then once I'm on it, I start to turn in relatively early, trail braking down, just nibbling at this red sausage curb. In something like a TCR, you could take a lot more of this, but this car doesn't like it because it obviously becomes unsettled if you hit too much. But because you're not really getting on the power after this, you can afford to take a little bit. Just a little bit of a blip of throttle as we come through, and then back on the brakes again. Try and avoid most of this sausage curb for this part because your exit's more important on the exit of this, so you want to have the car stabilized. You want to basically do most of the turning and then get hard on the power to try and maximize the traction. You can see I got just a little bit of wheel spin. You can see the little black line forming behind the left rear there, but it wasn't too bad of an exit. And again, you can use all of this up to the drain, so you might as well to try and get on the power a bit earlier. But then you've got a really short run to the start finish, so I just held it right to minimize the lap time. It's a qualifying tactic. Might shave you 0.002 off your lap time, I don't know, but you might as well do it. But yeah, that brings us back to the start finish. There we have it. That was the complete lap guide for the BMW GT3 at Spa. as I'm sure you know, with this track, it's such a varied track. There's that whole middle sector with high speed, mid speed corners, and then sector 1 and the final sector with the bus stop got really slow corners. But the key thing I would say in any car at this track is really maximizing those track limits, because within iRacing, obviously it's unrealistic, but they let you get away with quite a lot on the exits, and you can really find a lot of lap time by maximizing it. And specifically in this car, you've got to be careful in turn 1 and then the bus stop, because it struggles for traction being front engined. So you've just got to really straighten the car up as early as you can and then fire onto the power. But yeah, thanks for tuning into another lap guide. We do these every week in a whole variety of cars, and we also provide setups and data packs and the like. So for any information you need on what we provide at Coach Dave, check out the website or the Discord and you'll find everything you need. That's it from me, so I'll see you next time.